Thank you for joining us on Resource PNG. Tonight we talk about the contribution that the petroleum sector has made in the last 20 years. But firstly, we speak with Oil Search. The company has been around since 1929 and they're still here. Here's an interview I conducted with Oil Search's Managing Director, Mr. Peter Botten. Welcome viewers. With us we have Mr. Peter Botten, who's the Managing Director of Oil Search Limited. Welcome to the program, Mr. Botten.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So Oil Search has had a wonderful year. For this year, are you able to tell me what your highlights are for 2012?
Well, there have been a number of highlights. It really is a series of progress on the major projects such as PNG LNG. There's also been substantive progress on finding more gas to underwrite our future growth, as well as good production base, good continued strong production out of our oil fields, as well as some of the social issues. The launching of our Health Foundation has also been a highlight. Putting things back into the country is very, very important as this country goes through very significant financial and social change. It's been a good year.
All right. Well, one thing that Oil Search had to go or did this year was the largest exploration campaign in PNG's history. Are you able to talk about the exploration highlights and how it's impacted the company for this year?
Well, this year we expect to spend about something over 5 billion kina in the country, not just on development of PNG LNG and our oil fields, but also a significant exploration spend. And some of that has been spent in finding more gas and obviously participating with ExxonMobil and other joint venture partners in the PNG discovery was a very good start to the year. We also have set up a very major drilling program for 2013 through shooting seismic out in the Gulf of Papua. But overall, our drilling program is progressing hole by hole by hole. And although we've had some good success at PNG, we're also looking forward to next year where we have a very big drilling program on our oil fields, adding more reserves there in terms of oil, but also further exploration in the highlands and also in the Gulf of Papua.
So the exploration highlights of 2013, you've got more planned. The Gulf region, that came up during your AGM earlier this year. And you also announced there's an arrangement you have with Total for this year. Are you able to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we took a view that the Gulf of Papua had the potential for significant gas resource discoveries some time ago. And we shot state-of-the-art seismic out there, 3D seismic across a large area in the Gulf of Papua. And subsequent to the interpretation of that, we've offered for farm-in to a number of major LNG operators worldwide to come in and join us to explore. And Total, in a very competitive process, was the chosen partner. And they represent a party with very substantial LNG experience. They also have very good knowledge of how to build LNG, and they're also willing to pass some of that knowledge on to us as we grow our own expertise and hope to be involved much more in the LNG business into the future. So Total have joined us and they'll be our partners through the drilling program, which should start sometime in February. There's a very large semi-submersible drill rig which will be arriving in country sometime, we think, in late January. And we've got about a 4-month program next year, maybe a 5-month program, drilling at least 3 holes in the Gulf of Papua. And hopefully some of the people can go out and visit this rig. It's a long time since offshore drilling has taken place in Papua New Guinea, and this rig is a world-class piece of kit and will do the job, I'm sure, very well for us.
When we come back, we talk about the Oil Search Foundation. Rural areas are the most neglected when it comes to basic services. Companies that operate in such remote areas act as the government. Oil Search is no stranger to this concept. They have established the Oil Search Foundation that operates in 9 provinces. In this part of our interview, Mr. Botten also talks about how the company has refinanced its corporate debts facility. Well, Oil Search refinanced its corporate debt facility. Now, can you explain what that means to the company and how it reflects on PNG as an investment destination?
Well, Oil Search has done a large number of financings over the years that go back to 1992. With the Kutubu financing, we also financed acquisitions in Gobi. When we bought out BP in 1998, we also did a massive financing. And really what we've seen over the years is that driven by the stability of Papua New Guinea's political regime, fiscal regime has been extremely stable. The confidence level in both the company as it grows and also the country has grown enormously with the banking fraternity. And this last transaction that we did, where we raised some $500 million US as a general corporate facility, really helps us underwrite our future growth in Papua New Guinea with the various projects we've got there, and also a number of others outside Papua New Guinea. It does signal very strong banking and financing support for Oil Search, but it also signals a very strong endorsement for the country and the stability that's driven by the O'Neill government as it stands now.
Well, one thing that Oil Search did for 2012 was in March, you launched this Oil Search Foundation. Now, what I understand is it's involved in malaria as well as HIV/AIDS work and also TB. Are you able to tell us what was the whole idea behind it and what else it's going to expand to? Because I believe it covers about 9 provinces currently.
Yeah, well, I should say PNG, Oil Search is PNG's biggest company right now, and in 18 months' time, we'll be receiving very significant revenues from PNG LNG. Sometime in 2014, LNG revenues will come to us. And after that time, obviously as a major PNG company, we really feel like we need to put something back into the community and help facilitate the government in providing services, not just to the people in our project area, but also across the country. The Oil Search Health Foundation is one mechanism that we are using to partner with the National Department of Health, to partner with other development partners, such as Global Fund, AusAid, etc., and using our expertise in our supply chain, in our management processes, and some of our health service areas to work with the National Department of Health to deliver HIV programs, HIV management, child maternal health, TB and malaria control programs, and utilise the strength of the private sector allied with the policy and direction of the National Department of Health and Government to really make a difference across the country for the people in the grassroots and help the delivery of services. Now, the Health Foundation is a core part of our belief that we need to be a very socially responsible developer, explorer, producer in Papua New Guinea and put something back into the country. It's a core part of our business.
Right. So you've gone through our highlights for 2012. What can we look forward to for 2013 from Oil Search Limited?
Well, we've got a lot going on. As I say, we'll be spending somewhere in the order of $2.5 billion US. That's 5 billion kina in the country, putting money back that we've got out of production and putting it back to reinvest and grow our business there. Over the last 5 years, we've been a top quartile share market performer. We anticipate that with our assets in PNG, with exploration continuing in the highlands, further development activity on our oil business, obviously active participation in PNG LNG, the exploration in the Gulf, this is going to be a very exciting year for the company. And it's going to set us up for long-term 30-year plus revenue generation, not just from PNG LNG, but hopefully in the future from expansions of that project and further growth in other gas and oil projects that we can drive in our home base, which is PNG.
Thank you, Mr. Botten. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Great to be here.
And that was Mr. Peter Botten, who's the Managing Director of Oil Search Limited. After the break, we look at what the petroleum sector has put into the country over the past 20 years. After so many years, Papua New Guinea finally started producing oil and gas in 1991 at the Kutubu oil fields. This made PNG a very attractive country for petroleum exploration. That was over 20 years ago. What has come of this since? Here is the Managing Director of Oil Search Limited, Mr. Peter Botten, who speaks about the development and contribution of the PNG petroleum sector over the last 20 years.
Overall, PNG petroleum sector, the oil and gas investment since 1991, I calculate to be around $26 billion since 1991, 52 billion kina, depending on whether you start or finish with what exchange rate, but a very substantial and one of the largest single contributors to the nation's economic development. Right now, the industry is undergoing unprecedented growth, and the investment is at a historic high. It's obviously driven by gas commercialisation with the PNG LNG project behind that. As we heard this morning from the Prime Minister, it's benefited from a stable fiscal regime pretty much over that 20-odd years, though I do remember a few mosquito bites by Sir Julius Chan back in the late 90s and a few other minor changes. But overall, when compared to the Australian or UK fiscal regime, PNG has been hugely stable, and that has driven very substantial growth from a high-quality set of resources in the country. Obviously, we're very much dependent on world market forces, especially oil price, gas prices, etc. And at the moment, they're reasonably strong, and that's helping underscore all our investments. There have been very substantial benefits derived for all stakeholders, whether they be developers, national, state government, provincial government, local level governments, landowners, etc. And they've stemmed from revenues and dividends from production, direct benefits in taxes, wages, royalties, equity dividends, etc. And importantly, indirect benefits, employment, training, business development and infrastructure, all of which I'll spend a little bit of time on later on. The big question, though, is really how have those benefits been used? Could they have been used better? And how do we look to the future to use them better? We are in boom times. We are in unprecedented boom times. And that clearly is driven by the investment for PNG LNG. Over $6 billion US dollars is being invested by the oil and gas sector in PNG this year, and at least the same again next year. Unprecedented levels of investment. There are a whole range of new projects. Clearly, the last 20 years has been very much focused on oil, and oil around Kutubu, Gobi, Moran, etc. There are a whole range of new projects in the mill. PNG LNG obviously is one of them, but there are a number of others, including the Inter-Oil Energy Development, projects led by Horizon, Talisman, Eaglewood and others in different parts of the country. There's continued oil development in the Kutubu area, in our existing oil fields, and there's clearly strong exploration in the Gulf of Papua offshore, across the Highlands, Western Province, etc. A very, very strong basis upon which to build the next 20 years for PNG. If we look at the licence map, as you see up here, lots and lots of white lines. There's almost no free acreage right now in the core Gulf, in the core Papuan Basin. Pretty well everywhere has been taken up by licences and tenements from big companies, large mega majors, through the smaller players, through the entrepreneurial end of town. A very good mix, in my view, of different sizes and shapes of organisations striving to make a coin and develop value in Papua New Guinea. Clearly, the last 20 years has been very much around the focus of oil fields in the Highlands. There, in actual fact, has not been an oil field, significant oil field, beyond southeast Mananda and Mananda, discovered since 1998 in PNG. And although our resources approach 800 million barrels of oil equivalent in terms of commercialised oil, there's probably at least 5 times more oil equivalent in terms of gas that now awaits to be commercialised through various LNG schemes and various other gas commercialisation options. But the last 20 years has been very much concentrated about oil fields from the Highlands, and now the build in terms of PNG LNG and other LNG projects such as the Inter-Oil one. If we look at different aspects of different companies' focus, these are the oil search set of licenses, very much concentrated in the Gulf of Papua and in the Highlands. If you look at ExxonMobil's, obviously very much Highlands dominated around the gas and the LNG project into the future. If you look at Interoil, a little bit more to the east and opening up a new province in the eastern Papuan Basin, with new carbonate plays and different types of plays there. And if you look in the west, the people such as Talisman looking at various gas aggregation projects in the western province, along with Horizon, who are also looking at liquid stripping and gas aggregation. You can see a broad spread of interest with different players across different areas of the country, different areas of prospectivity, and a much broader range of interest and investment than there was even 5 years ago. Certainly 20 years ago, the focus was in the Highlands and not much else was happening. That's no longer true. Of course, in the oil business, it's still a very, very good business. We continue to drill substantive numbers of holes and workovers in the oil business. It's still the best returning business in Papua New Guinea, in the Papua New Guinea oil and gas sector. We drilled over 36 consecutive successful holes, and it's, as I say, the highest returning business using high technology and a lot of skills, with something over 90% of our workforce, now national workforce, developing skills in supervisory roles, and many of those people come from our local community. It really is boom time.
That was Oil Search's Managing Director Peter Botten talking about the contribution of the petroleum industry over the past 20 years. Thank you for staying with us. Community support is something that most companies need to have. Without that social license, it would be difficult to operate. Besides this, there are other issues that petroleum companies are faced with.
Some of the building blocks that underpin the boom. We've already mentioned stable, supportive fiscal regimes. Stable government and fiscal rules are absolutely paramount. Committed partners prepared to invest. Certainly there have been partners who have been willing and desirous of milking the assets. There have also been a lot of partners that have put their money up through the hard times to actually develop where we've got to today. But you do need commitment, you need financing, you need often the backing of your financiers. And again, 20 years ago, just actually borrowing money for a major resource project in Papua New Guinea involved substantial risk evaluation by each of the banks. Substantial political risk insurance was required. Now that's no longer the case. With the extra maturity, driven by this stability, driven by the strength of the partners and the upside of what we're actually all facing in terms of development. We see obviously favourable commodity pricing, access to financing, an absolutely critical part. As well as that, we've got high quality reserves. We have high deliverability reservoirs generally. We've got quality oil, we've got quality gas with little impurities. It makes us very competitive in the world space. We also see and are developing access to infrastructure. Clearly, some of those fields in the west are very dependent on getting infrastructure out there. Clearly, down the spine from the Highlands to the coast and now to Port Moresby, there's a growing level of accessibility for people, for materials, and being able to move the commodity out through export via pipeline and then by ship. But the access to infrastructure is a critical part, and as that grows, as it is growing now, we will open up more areas for development. Most importantly, people. A range of benchmarking across a number of countries puts Papua New Guinean people in the upper echelons of intelligence and applicability. I hear the story about productivity, and clearly that is an area of focus. But Papua New Guineans are generally pretty smart, and they have applied themselves very well to underscore the industry, and with training and substantive experience that they are gaining, taking a much greater role and an appropriate role in the development of their resources. We also, all of us know that without community support in Papua New Guinea, without the social support of the community, we do not have a business. You cannot keep your people out using fences and wire and security. They are part of your community, they are part of the development, and generally speaking, we've had progressive, strong community support over the last 20 years. It's not to say we haven't got incidents every day or every moment of every day, but overall, if we don't continue to work with the communities, they can shut us down and will, as and when they want to, without that support. And that is a significant distinguishing feature for Papua New Guinea development. As I mentioned, with the development of PNG, with the development of PNG LNG, there's been substantive refocusing by the investment and financing community on the country. And I'm pleased to say that the support that we have from our banking community is now unprecedented. It's at the highest level possible, and that's a tribute to all of the above, the stable fiscal regime, the quality of the resources and the operators that are there, as well as obviously support of the people. All of that bodes well for the future. If you take Oil Search and Oil Search's value as to a degree, a bellwether for how PNG's gone. Going back to 1991, Oil Search had a market capitalisation of somewhere around $250 million. And if you walk along each one of these milestones, Kutubu First Oil was in July 1992. Discovery of Gobi was not long after, and Southeast Gobi and Gobi Main not long after that. And discovery of Moran at the end of 1996 was probably the last major oil discovery. You can also see big changes in oil price, $16, $17 a barrel oil price. And I remember in 1998 when Oil Search bought all of BP's assets, an article on the front page of the The Economist said oil was going to $5 a barrel. Not a good thing when you've just spent $450 million on buying a bunch of assets. Overall, though, a series of aggregations and assimilations. Some of the people who didn't want to be in PNG left and were bought out. Oil Search merged with Origin Minerals, the other PNG company, in 2002 and bought out Chevron assets in 2003. And since that time, you've seen the oil price climb immediately, our value climb substantially, and PNG's fortunes also go up with those changes. Who can remember in 2003, John Howard was standing up in front of the Northwest Shelf joint venture and asking them to sign gas contracts at $3 an MBTU with the Chinese. It's a little different now. That's when the pipeline was on and PNG was trying to commercialise its long-term gas resources into Queensland, where at least gas prices were in the $4 to $5 an MBTU range. How things have changed when you can now see LNG prices probably in the $15 and $16 an MBTU. And of course in 2007-8, the pipeline project morphed into PNG LNG, and away we went.
In the next part of Mr. Botton's presentation, we look at the direct and indirect benefits of the petroleum sector. Oil and gas production means a lot of money. The state is to use that income for the benefit of the people. And over the past 20 years, the country has seen some of those benefits, both direct and indirect.
Where does PNG petroleum regime fit in the world? We've heard some of that earlier on today. It's certainly a highly progressive regime. It's relatively simple. It's governed by an Oil and Gas Act, which has not changed too much since independence. The ownership is vested by the state, and we discussed some of that and some of the sensitivities around that earlier today. It's a relatively simple tax and royalty regime. It is a world leader in community ownership. There is no other country in the world that has such a substantive ownership structure, which has government ownership in the project, certainly, but more importantly, landowner equity ownership. and very, very comprehensive landowner involvement in every project that gets built in the oil and gas space. No other country in the world, I say, has got that involvement. That's not to say that we've got it right yet, but it's certainly something that's really, really unusual. It was actually quite a pleasure a few years ago to take some 35 landowner leaders from the oil and gas areas in PNG to go and visit Woodside on the Northwest Shelf. And when we did go down there, we asked Woodside to put on what their community involvement was in the development of the Northwest Shelf and how many projects that the community were involved in. And I think after a bit of time they came up with two, one of which was weed killing once a month around the project site, and one was a small construction project. When our landowners heard that, they were actually quite impressed by what they had in Papua New Guinea and thought they should go back home and probably get more, certainly, but they were perfectly happy in having a little bit more than killing a few weeds. Where do we sit in the world? Overall, a complicated slide, but in reality, this is a government take slide, e.g. government takes a percentage on this axis, and across the bottom are the various countries. And based on present fiscal regimes, in Papua New Guinea, the state takes approximately 63–64% of the total value of any project, be it in tax, in equity, etc. It's about middle of the road. I suppose that's the important thing. But as the industry changes, things change, that's quite normal for it to be looked at. One of the great successes of the oil business has been driving a bit of extra production. And out of that has come some serious value and some substantial tax take since that time. Since 2003, over 100 million barrels have been added to the oil business. That is high returning barrels to the developers, but also to the state. If you're fighting an inexorable 20% decline curve, further investment's necessary to keep the production up. The reality is, without that incentive from tax, without that incentive from the high oil price, the oil business itself would be running down, if not completely run down, by today. We would be below 10,000 barrels of oil per day in total production. In actual fact, we're probably in the 38–39,000 barrels a day, all brought about by stable fiscal regime, continued investment, and some success in our oil business. If we look at who manages the benefit streams, the National Government, Department of Petroleum, MRDC, are the benefit manager for the royalties, cash, some of the equity dividends, development levies, MOA grants and tax credits. And if you look on the right-hand side, the beneficiaries of those are local level governments, provincial governments, various ILGs, impacted provincial governments, etc., etc. And one of the focus areas for us as an operator there and into the future, we must help the national government and its various arms to help them manage in an appropriate way the benefits that flow. We also need their help to manage land compensation, land rentals, landowner company contracts, etc., employment and training. That are all part of our obligations as an operator in those areas. This is very much a mutual ownership issue and something that we can improve on, in my view, into the future, especially as the numbers grow. And what are the numbers? The benefits paid from the oil and gas industry through to the end of 2010 are just under 13 billion kina. 13 billion made up of just over around 9.5 billion kina in terms of income tax, salaries, wages, withholding tax. Some 820 million kina gone into provincial, local level governments. In terms of cash for landowners, around 393 million, and non-cash indirect employment opportunities and contracts, about another 2.2. It's a pretty substantial number, and clearly when you have done and looked at the benefits and the impact of those numbers, I think we can do better in terms of ensuring that those sorts of numbers have an appropriate impact. There is a very, very substantial importance on indirect benefits to our business and our operating stability. It is a unique operating environment where we operate often in remote and difficult areas, making relationships and good relationships with the affected communities absolutely essential. The landowners very much are partners. I'll just sort of reside on this a lot, but in our view, you have to have a highly inclusive approach. You have to have a framework of transparency and sustainability with these people, and huge benefits come from having an open and reasonable approach. Over the 20-odd years, we've developed very good, strong relationships with our communities, and sometimes it's volatile, sometimes it's difficult, quite naturally, but without their support, we wouldn't be there. We're also working on sustainable livelihood development, obviously with the PNG LNG being there for many, many years to come. That's of lesser importance, but it is important to see our local communities participate, especially in agricultural development around our communities. Capacity building in some of our local institutions is absolutely essential, along with a social licence to operate, an essential part of today's business in attracting finance for us all. PNG is a very, very different environment, and when you look at the local business development, the oil fields themselves right now put in annual contract values of about 100 million kina per annum into our local landowner companies. One clear positive, and I'm sure Larry will be talking about it in his speech later on, is the development of Trans Wonderland as a major trucking company in PNG. That trucking company received seed capital from the oil joint ventures and initial contracts, and the help and structure to have broad landowner ownership, not just around the gas and oil fields, but also along the main roads in which it goes. And Trans Wonderland is a superb, world-class example of how local business development in Papua New Guinea can be very successful. Everybody involved in that should be congratulated. We obviously, as Ella said, also support local entrepreneurial training. We have various other projects and with World Wildlife Fund, Chamber of Mines, Women in Training, etc., all of which have had a positive local impact in our communities. Again, the highlight some of the community projects that are absolutely essential. This is the Ngoli Elementary School near Hydes, and this is after one of the community-based projects where the community themselves put in time, effort and labour to derive this outcome, new classrooms, new school, and a positive outcome for the kids.
Stay tuned, we get to look at the last part of that presentation when we come back. Landowners are the primary beneficiaries of most of the petroleum projects. They have made good use of these opportunities. Trans Wonderland Limited is one such company, and there are others. This company has made the most of their seed capital. From a business perspective, working with the petroleum industry has paid off quite handsomely.
Overall, on some of the softer issues, the oil business spends approximately $30 million kina a year on community projects, and you can see community health and the Oil Search Health Foundation, which is a new public-private partnership model, taking and partnering with the National Department of Health, a number of development agencies, and to deliver health services to a range of provinces in PNG, now in 9 provinces in PNG, is something that we think is an essential part of the future for developers in Papua New Guinea, putting more back and helping government deliver services as expectations of these services and service delivery increase. Gareya will be talking about that tomorrow. What has not worked? And there have been stuff that hasn't worked, and clearly we have seen material benefits have been paid, but clearly there's still some basic infrastructure lacking in some of our areas. There's also been some questioning about the transparency and effectiveness of the distribution, especially around some of the use of the MOA funds, with few projects built, and sometimes it's a highly politicised, highly divisive set of monies that do go back into community. The reality is we need to improve that together. We need and have looked at socio-economic changes in our communities since 1991. And it clearly demonstrates, when you look at all the villages across our areas, that the benefits have not always reached their targets, and we have to improve. As a group, we have to improve. This is a problem for us all, and it's something that we wish to work with government and our joint venture partners to improve this delivery. The ways forward. Obviously, the first thing to do is to let everybody know what the benefits are, what they're due, and how they're being distributed. Let everybody know where they're going and how much. There is a lot of lack of knowledge about what benefits are due and how they should be distributed. And the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, which is an international standard way of improving accountability and transparency of benefits, I think, and I think the Deputy Secretary of Treasury will be talking about this on Wednesday, is a significant step forward. We can see also the implementation of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, a very significant positive step forward by this government, which will show short, medium and long-term objectives for the benefit streams, significant part of the benefit streams. We can also see a significant required capacity building in the Department of Petroleum. We have had a massive growth, and we'll see further growth in our industry over the next few years. We must see that we support the Department of Petroleum further. It does a tremendous job with the resource that it has, but with the massive change in size of industry, it's a much more complex, much more difficult industry to manage as a regulator, and we must do what we can as an industry to help them meet those challenges. The move to create an authority in a similar way to the Minerals Authority is applauded, but change must happen very soon. Well, what else? What's worked? Well, clearly there have been significant benefits paid. There's been numbers have been large and spread across various state and landowner interests. State and landowner equity is essential, and clearly that's something that is very important to us, and getting that right is important. Community, labour, training and business development has also been important to us, and tax credit projects have also worked. In PNG, the largest exercise of resource development democracy anywhere in the world. It's the only country in the world where landowners have such a big say in what goes on in any of the projects, far more than anywhere else. And I think PNG should be proud of that exercise. It represents challenges, but also some upside. There's a backdrop in the country of increasing expectations, and rightly so. With much more revenue coming in, more benefits are expected, more expectations of service delivery, and really, in reality, as an industry, working with government, we need to address this and progressively help the benefits deliver in an effective, transparent way, but also engage in a healthy and timely discussion on the fairness of how those benefits and the size of benefits should be distributed, not just to the people in our project areas, but across the country. Communication and dialogue right now is a key to success. There have been 3 significant review of terms in the oil and gas space since 2000, and they've all been characterised by open, honest and informed dialogue between all the parties involved. And they have resulted in balanced terms, strong investment and financial support aided by good market conditions, and unprecedented investments now being made as a result of this stability. The returns from some of these investments clearly are not here yet, and there's clearly a lot more growth to come, but it requires stability and certainty, and I'm very pleased to hear the Prime Minister saying today that it will be an open, honest and informed dialogue. Very, very important because we all need to get this right. If not, there'll be another boom. Not so good as the first two, but we do need to get it right, and we do need to take emotion out of this dialogue. Okay, stable government, proactive government is a major positive for our future. Stable and predictability, stability and predictability, a key part of our future business. Focusing very strongly on domestic jobs and industry development, much more so than in the past, with further aspirations for PNG industry to grow on the back of this resource growth overall. Certainly exports underpin that, but building local participation, building on service outcomes, especially in education and health, are key parts to our future success. The oil and gas industry is ready to play its part in its delivery. It has been an engine room for national development. We've helped develop the economy for over 20 years, underpinning growth and substantial benefits, I say, has been passed back. We've been a catalyst for employment, skills development, infrastructure build and service delivery. We can improve key aspects of delivery. The benefits derived to date have had a positive impact, but not all have been well delivered and used. Let's learn from the past and let's look forward to the future. The industry is undergoing massive change with growth being delivered, but much, much more to come. There is an unprecedented need for constructive dialogue between government and industry to improve on what's been done in the past, to discuss the future and meet our collective aspirations. There are significant challenges ahead for us all. Get it right, we continue the boom. Get it wrong, we get a different sort of boom. Thanks very much.
That's it for another episode of Resource PNG. If you want to know more about the program, do drop us an email, and you are welcome to view this presentation on our Resource PNG page at www.mtv.com.pg. Until the same time next week, have a pleasant week.